Shahbandar, who can join us live in the studio for some analysis of what we just heard there. It's very interesting because, I mean, Azerbaijan seems a very natural choice to visit first after being sworn in, because they have such not just strong cultural ties. I mean, the language is almost essentially, it's very similar, but the economic ties are so strong, and President Erdogan would like to see those grow even further.
Indeed, there's a special relationship between the two countries, and it's no coincidence that President Aliyev of Azerbaijan was the first head of state to congratulate President Erdogan following his election victory, and it's no coincidence that almost immediately following his inauguration, President Erdogan is now back in Baku sitting down with President Aliyev. And this special relationship is based on strong and close economic and energy ties, security ties, and historical ties. The alliance between Turkey and Azerbaijan really is based around these three common pillars. Turkey backs Azerbaijan with its ongoing dispute with Armenia. Armenia still occupies nearly 20% of Azerbaijani territory. Turkey has made it very clear to Armenia that they will not normalize relationships with Yerevan unless Yerevan reaches a peace agreement with Azerbaijan that adheres to the UN Security Council resolution to return that territory that Armenia occupies back to Azerbaijan. And of course, let's not forget energy. We're talking about billions of additional cubic meters of natural gas that will now flow from the Caspian and into Turkey following last week's inauguration of the Trans-Anatolian pipeline. That's good for the economy here. That's good for the energy interests of the Turkish people, and will eventually flow into Europe by 2020 to strengthen Europe's security energy needs, and which will help it wean off monopolistic Russian state-backed energy companies. So a win-win overall. So this relationship here, we're seeing it really manifested as President Erdogan now sits down with President Aliyev, and you can expect this relationship to grow stronger over the years following Turkey's election.
And you were mentioning there that Turkey is Azerbaijan's strongest ally, really, in its dispute, its war, actually, with Armenia over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. But on defense, he also brought up the larger issues here. He says he's looking forward to attending, or to negotiations, rather, coming up at the NATO summit. Why so? What does Turkey want to achieve now?
Well, these negotiations are coming up in the backdrop of the conflict, the low-boil conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia that's flared up every now and then into outright combat. In 2016, Azerbaijan fought a 4-day war against Armenia. In May of this year, a 10-day battle led to Azerbaijan recapturing 110 square kilometers of its territory back from Armenia and the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. Now the foreign ministers of these two countries will be sitting down on the sidelines of the NATO conference in Brussels. Talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan haven't really gone anywhere for quite some time. So the fact that they're sitting down now, especially after Armenia's recent elections, could hopefully restart the negotiations and the discussions towards peace, towards a resolution for the occupied Karabakh region. Turkey has made it very clear to Armenia, if it wants those borders open with Turkey, if it wants to normalize those relations and enhance its economic power in the region, then Armenia needs to make a deal with Azerbaijan and return the territory that it occupies back to Azerbaijan. And of course, Azerbaijan is looking to Turkey and that Turkish support to strengthen its position in negotiations with NATO and with Armenia.
Right. This visit is very important, but overall it will be rather brief, because President Erdogan is set to travel to northern Cyprus very soon as well. What can we expect from that visit?
Well, energy is really on the top here of the agenda, especially in the Eastern Mediterranean region, with disputes on natural gas fields between Israel, between Greece, and to reaffirm the Turkish position in Cyprus, supporting the Turkish Cypriot position, which of course Greece opposes. And Greece uses this as a main leverage, its main excuse for opposing any normalization between Europe and Turkey. Now, of course, going back to NATO, a lot of the modernization, the radical modernization that we've seen in Azerbaijan and its defense capabilities, at least the ones that I saw while I was there last week, is due in large part to Turkey, to the NATO academies, to the NATO military academies in Turkey, where perhaps thousands of Azerbaijani military officials and soldiers have gone through that training. So Turkey here really sort of a linchpin between NATO and the Caucasus, going back to Cyprus. that Eastern Mediterranean energy security top of the agenda, reaffirming Turkey's special relationship with Cyprus, the Turkish-Cyprus area, and Azerbaijan as a strong bond. And that's why we're seeing President Erdogan making those trips, his first trips, following his inauguration.
Okay, Oubai, we will leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in.